Alright, so welcome back. We've done a lot of work over the last couple of weeks in terms of developing the character, exploring sense of space. Right, the next phase is starting to tie it together and move from sort of the abstract story that we've been developing in the plot summary diagrams and bringing together the sketches all together in the series of panels. And this video today is focusing on how is it that we're going to go about sort of planning out what these panels are going to be looking like. Basic tools for today: a straight edge. Doesn't have to be a ruler, but a ruler can be helpful. A dot paper or graph paper, something that has some sort of consistent measurements on it. It'll save you a ton of time. If you don't have graph paper at home, I have attached a link to this dot paper here that you can print out. You're probably going to need a few sheets of it, but it's here for you in order to get that work done. So basic tools, and we are starting with exploring. So the basic idea here is that the grid paper or the dot paper is going to help provide you with a visual structure. Because one of the main things that we need to be doing is thinking about the overall size of each of the panels and making sure that the spacing between the panels is consistent, and that spacing is where the graph paper comes in particular, right? So first thing that we're going to do is we're going to think about the first page. And on the first page, what I would like to see is that we are thinking about the title. And actually, I'm going to work with the dot paper because the holes are kind of bothering me a little bit. So the first thing for me, the title is going to take up approximately 1/3 of the space here, right? And kind of picking this somewhat arbitrarily. If I wanted to be a little bit more precise, I could actually go in and count the dots and be much more specific. So this is going to be my title block or my title panel. And I haven't quite thought yet of what I want this one to actually be, but I'm going to just make a little note down in the corner. Okay, just right there, it says title, just to remind me of what's going to be going in here. Right, at this point, it's going to be really important to make sure that I have my plot summary up, because this is going to start to affect the size and the positioning and the shape of the various panels that I'm going to end up wanting to create. So the first thing that I've noted in my plot summary diagram is that I want to have an extreme close-up of the eyes. Right? So if I'm thinking about this, if it's just the eyes, this is a fairly long and narrow shot or panel, right? And especially if it's just on the eyes. So I'm going to also be taking a look at the spacing. So I'm going to create a panel here, okay, that is going to be the same width as that title. All right, and because what's going to be in here is literally just eyeballs. Okay, that's the plan. I'm thinking ahead to that, to the content, right? So I'm going to use short little code CU for close-up. Actually, it's going to be an extreme close-up, so ECU, right? I'm going to just make a note, and it's the eyes. All right, the next thing that I have on my list is this idea that I'm working at a computer. So in my head, this is kind of like more of a medium shot, and right now there's not a whole lot of energy that's happening in this particular sequence, right? This is right at the beginning. So I'm going to be using a lot more of the sort of the box shapes or square rectangular shapes for my panels, as opposed to introducing diagonal lines at this point, because the progression of these shapes is going to be also really important. Okay, so this is I'm going to number this one 1. This one's going to be panel number 2, and in this one, I've got this is a medium shot, so I'm coding MS down in the bottom corner here, and this is working at computer. right? And this is just a reminder as to what needs to be going into each of the panels. So here, next one is, again, we're going to be going for a close-up to show a clock in order to help give a sense of time. So I'm going to draw this one over here. And again, I'm using these dots to make sure that the different sides of my panel are getting laid out fairly consistently. Okay, so panel number 3, I'm going to number this, and my description here is a close-up of a clock. And next, I have, right, to create a little bit more interest here, you notice that I'm breaking up sort of that strong horizontal by making this part subdivided in order to create a little bit more variety in the overall visual structure of the page. So I got 1, 2, 3, I got panel 4, and in this one it's going to be hands, I got to spell correctly, hands on keyboard. Right. So this is sort of the basic gist of what it is that we're going to be doing, right? So as I said, I'm looking at a variety of different pages. The example that I've been working on, it's going to be a little bit more involved perhaps than what you're going to be creating, but we're going to keep going with this. I'm going to do a little bit more work. I'm going to, again, use the speed up feature in the video to move to where I'm going to start thinking about having more dynamic shapes. Okay? But the big thing here to remember is that the sides are all lining up and that the spacing between my panels is neat and consistent. Right? So once I get to starting to think about a different visual structure, I'm going to slow the video back down to normal speed and provide you with some more things to think about as you're designing your pages. Okay, so I'll be right back. Alright, so now you can see that instead of using a 90-degree shape, I am starting to use some angled lines. And the reason that I'm going to be doing this is that these angled lines are good for creating two specific effects. Number one is for creating a little bit of tension, right? Because it breaks up the regularity and the overall kind of structure that was present in the first couple of pages that I drew. Right, and creates visual energy. So the tension and visual energy should really start to become more visualized as you work into the rising action and getting closer to the climax of the story. So the angles could get sharper. Right? Again, you'll notice here that I'm trying to maintain consistent spacing. So at the bottom, I'm 1 dot apart. Up at the top, I'm 1 dot apart. And I'm just bringing my line down in order to make sure that I'm maintaining that consistent point of view. So in the story, what I'm going to have happening here is the son, or my son, kind of asking for my attention, and I'm going to break that up over 3 consecutive panels. And then down at the bottom, I'm going to have a fairly large panel, right, that is really like the sun saying, you know what, you're breaking your promise, Dad. I want your attention. It's not fair that you're spending so much time on schoolwork, and that sort of that emphasis, right? So I'm going to create that emphasis by doing something kind of large and bold down at the bottom. All right, so that's going to be my third page. All right, and this is my 9th panel. I'm going to call it 9A. I'm going to call it pester. 9B is going to be about pestering. I'm going to call it 9C. Again, it's the same, right? It's the idea of how that's going to flow together, right? And you can see that there's a very, very distinct emphasis being drawn on this particular part of the story, because, right, everything else is extremely regular, and I'm not going to say predictable, but there's a strong sense of order that suddenly gets broken by using those diagonal lines, right? And then down here in number 10, this is I'm going to call it the accusation down at the bottom. Okay? So as I get moving up into the actual climactic part of the story, right, where kind of get overly frustrated, right, this is going to be fairly large because it's the most important part. I'm going to have this kind of a stronger, bigger box that I'm going to end up using, and that's going to come across here. Now I made a mistake, I didn't come over quite far enough, so I'm going to erase that line, right? And this is the important of working with rough drafts, is to make sure that you're able to get these little inconsistencies figured out. I'm just actually going to grab a fresh sheet of paper for now, and let's start this one again. Right, the other thing I'm doing, you'll notice I just switched my pencil, is I'm trying to make sure that I'm keeping my lead nice and sharp as well. All right, so I'm going to come down, right, and I want there to be a fair bit of energy in this one, so I'm going to use a fairly sharp angle to visually communicate sort of the tension that's there, and block this off. And because this is the climax, you'll notice that I'm using a much larger panel size, and this is going to be number 11, and this is the yelling, and down at the bottom is the kind of the sending away. So I'm going to kind of draw this one in kind of lightly, and draw this one in like so. Okay, so you notice here that I had to draw in that diagonal line first because it actually doesn't quite reach up to that dot, right? So it gives me the proper placement for and height of this line here. So this is number 12. I'm going to call it send away. And this one over here, we will have as the leaving. Okay? And again, making sure that I'm using that guideline that was created so that to make sure that these lines and these lines are parallel to each other. Then I can go in and I can just erase the one that's in behind. And so this one and this one's the leaving. Okay, so now I'm almost there. I got one more page that I'm going to actually put together. Right, these are I'm doing these fairly large. Your panels can actually be a little bit smaller. You can work on probably creating somewhere in the neighborhood of more around like 7 to 8 if you want. Okay, but I'm going to be looking for at least a couple of pages for your final copy. And now that the sort of the tension of the story is over. Where did we go? Through over here, right? The climax has happened. I'm going to go back to that stronger kind of more blockish approach in order to visually create the resolution. Alright, so I'm just going to finish these up, and then we'll quickly kind of just go through how all 5 of these pages are kind of working together. Alright, so just going back, I'm going to get these pages in order, and we're going to go from there. Just quickly run through all of these, okay? So, again, first page, make sure that you have an area for your title, and then we're going to start with the starting to tell the story. One thing that you may want to consider doing is just on a rough sheet of paper before you begin, right? You could just kind of sketch it out this way as well, and kind of get a sense of the overall page layout and what you're going to be kind of aiming for. Just really quickly before you start working on the grid paper. I like kind of going straight here and getting that precision overall, but the style of working is for you. So again, title. Right, start of the story. Right, I'm gonna have a big bold image. I'm playing around with different sizes of boxes, creating a sequence in order to create a sense of time passing. Right, a very dominant large panel on the page. Right, and again developing that sense of story to kind of come along. The energy getting created by the use of diagonals. Right, and then again a very strong kind of bold image. Right. The huge climax of the story takes up, right, it's the largest panel in the entire story, right, and then the story continues, right, and then sort of that resolution. This page, I'm going to fully admit, I do not like this one. I'm going to actually redo this to work on kind of the overall flow. This particular spot here is really what's kind of given me troubles. It's just creating too much rigidity in the overall structure. So this is one way of going about it. I'm also going to provide some instruction to use some digital tools as well. That's an option for you. But this is what we're looking for, right? It's just what is that visual overall flow of the story going to look like? It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Good luck, and again, right, the sooner you get this done, then the quicker you can get the feedback, and then the quicker you can start working on one of your thumbnail sketches. All right, good luck, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.